Hey, Vegan Cyclist, so we're going to talk about heart rate, power, cadence, speed, feel. We're going to talk about the pros and cons and when to use these metrics. So look, before we really get into this, all of these metrics are tools. They're tools to help with progression. They're tools to help you get better and be more efficient. Now, if that's not necessarily your goal, to expand and to conquer new feats of endurance and fitness, it's no big deal, right? You don't have to use these tools. But the old school method of just ride really hard all the time, it's just not how, there's no science to back that up to say that that's the best way to do it. The new tools, power meters, heart rates, and different ways to think about training, they go a really long way. And even if you're not a racer, even if you ride once a month, I'm telling you, if you understand metrics and how to use them and when to use them, you can make yourself a stronger, better rider without increasing your fitness, just by being more efficient and understanding your, what is going on during the ride and how much you have left and how hard to go. So look, let's go through power, heart rate, cadence, speed, and feel. Let's start with feel because it's the least scientific, all right? This is just basically off your perceived exertion. And that is going to have the most variables in it, right? You could feel really good and feel like you're going really fast when you're really not at all. Because maybe if you don't have any sort of metrics, you could be doing 100 watts. Yeah, you feel fantastic because you're doing no watts. As your fitness increases, your feeling doesn't really change. It doesn't hurt less, you just go faster. The pro for feel would be you're not having to worry about anything, right? And you can just enjoy the ride. So if you're going out and you're riding in new areas and you're not really worried about training or whatever, you're not worrying about structuring anything, man, it's really nice sometimes to not even look at the Garmin, to take it off or just, whatever, have time on it, because it's sometimes really neat to just take in the surroundings. If you're by the coast or in the woods or wherever, man, you're near a lake, it's kind of cool to just absorb that as an experience, right? So the pro, when you're just going off of feel, is that you're not bogged down with any metrics of it telling you how much you suck or telling you, how much energy you have left, right? So that's definitely a pro. The con of feel is everything other than that pro. The cons are that the variables are so wide. There's no way to track progression. There's nothing, there's no science behind feel. It's going to go up and down all over the board. So that's the biggest con, all the variables. When to use feel would definitely be if you're exploring new areas, like I just said. You go out and you're just going for a rest ride, and you're in a new area and you're just hanging out, man. Totally, just go off feel and enjoy it, taking that experience. The next metric would be speed. Now, usually most of us, when we first start riding, the Garmin we buy or the bike computer we buy is very basic, right? It doesn't have heart rate, it doesn't have power. It's just, when I first started riding, I had this little cat's eye thing, and all it had was speed and cadence. That's in distance, right? That was it. And so a lot of times that's really the only metric you have is speed. But much like feel, speed has so many variables in it that are just not controlled. When I very first started riding, I had this route that I went from like a stop sign out to this climb and back. And the only thing I had was total time, right? Basically, so speed, right? Of going from point A to point B and then back. And that's how I tracked my progression. I would do an hour and 12 minutes one time, and then I would be trying to beat an hour and 12 minutes the next time, and the next time, and the next time. But again, what if you have a headwind? But that was at least something that I could have. A pro for speed would be that it's pretty comparable between riders, right? Power and heart rate fluctuates massively between riders, but I could be going side by side with my coach, Tony, and I'm doing, 100 less watts than him, but we're going the same speed. So for speed wise, if you wanted to compare yourself to other riders, I guess that would be a pro, right? You can compare yourself to pro level athletes. If you're doing time trials or triathlons, speed is really important because you know basically what a 10-mile TT speed range is. So you can slowly start to work towards that progression. A con for speed, again, is just the variables. You know, you're going uphill, right? So if you tried to match your speed on a big climb and you're trying to pace on speed, dude, there's no way you're gonna do it. You're gonna try to say, okay, well, I gotta hold 12 miles an hour up this huge climb. Well, if it flattens out, you know what I mean? Are you then gonna try to just hold 12 and then when it's really steep, you're trying to hold 12? There's just no way, right? So again, the cons for speed would definitely be variable. When to use speed definitely would be for time trials. Like obviously other metrics would be great, but for speed, you can definitely put that in and say, look, I know the winning time is gonna be 28 miles an hour. And so when you're looking at it, you know, you can see, am I at 26 miles an hour with 1 mile to go? Okay, I've lost. Using speed, when to use speed, definitely probably time trials would be the best way to do it. Cadence is a hot topic with a lot of people, especially with Chris Froome, kind of trying to show that high cadence is the way to go. You spin to win, right? It's definitely what I've seen. GCN has kind of showed this, and I think other studies will show your body is naturally gonna find what works best for you, right? And if you purposely try to push a higher cadence than what your body kind of defaults to, you're gonna go over the power curve, right? You're gonna be pushing out too many RPMs and not enough force and possibly be less efficient. Now, if you train at higher cadence, then that might be good. So the pro for cadence, that you can make sure that you're not just totally overloading your muscular system, right? And if you are going at say 60 RPMs for a long time, man, you're almost sidestepping a whole part of your motor, which is your anaerobic side of that. So the pro would be able to watch your cadence and know, kind of like a tachometer, right, in a car. You know when you're starting to wrap it out, and there is a point of peak performance, peak power, which you're gonna find probably somewhere between 85 and 105 RPMs, depending on who you are. Now it's a wide range, but you'll find this peak at where you can put the most amount of force and with the right amount of RPMs and have your peak power. A con for cadence is that there's really no way to track that progression, right? I mean, you could probably spend 100 RPMs when you first started riding, and 10 years later, you could probably do the same. When to use cadence would probably be on a really long climb, an hour-long climb, to make sure that you are staying above that certain, peak area. You start to drop below 80 RPMs, 70 RPMs, it's gonna cost you, man. Later on in the ride, your legs are just gonna be burnt. So when to use cadence would definitely be in trying to figure out how to manage, your energy and make sure that it's as efficient as possible. All right, heart rate. Heart rate's a big one, and a lot of people have only used heart rate. And before power really became accessible, heart rate was the bee's knees, for sure. Heart rate is a fantastic tool to gauge many different metrics. And for the most part, a lot of people can't afford power, so heart rate is the only way for you to go. You can definitely do structured workouts with heart rate. You can pace yourself amazingly with heart rate. The thing that you need for heart rate is some sort of data. You're gonna need plot points, right? To know what's your max, what's your threshold. These sorts of things can come from tests. But man, heart rate is a fantastic tool, absolutely. And before I had any metrics, when I just had speed and cadence, when I finally got heart rate, it was like, whoa, I have been riding way too hard. I'd go out and do workouts at perceived exertion, and man, I was just every workout was just me like tongue in the spokes. And as soon as I got heart rate and I could look at the zone I was supposed to be in, man, I was really surprised. It made the workouts way easier, and it was really surprising. The pro for heart rate is that it's cheap. It's probably the cheapest, best bang for your buck wise if you're gonna be using some sort of metric for structured training. They're a dime a dozen, man. If you buy a Garmin, usually it comes with it. You can get them off eBay for 20 bucks. So what a heart rate can do to improve your structure training and your pacing and your metrics for progression and all that sort of stuff, dude, it's a must. The con would be that it's variable. There's a lot of variables that come into that. Heat, caffeine consumption, fatigue, elevation. I mean, there's a lot of things that will affect your heart rate. In structure training and training period, what we would love to do is to eliminate all variables so that you know exactly what you're doing, that you can gauge exactly your progression, that you can know, are you up, are you down, are you trending up, are you trending down, are you making improvements, right? Another con for heart rate is that it takes a little while to get up. So if you are, say, doing a workout that says, okay, hold 170 beats per minute for 5 minutes. Well, as soon as you start doing that effort, it's gonna take 20 or 30 seconds before your heart rate gets up to that, right? So you might be going harder than you should or way under what you should, right? So that's kind of a little bit of an issue there. When to use it would be to show overtraining, fatigue levels, right? If you are putting out a lot of what you perceive as a lot of power and you can't get your heart rate up, if it's really low but you're going hard, it's probably a lot of fatigue that's being built up, right? Or if your heart rate is just spikes off the wall as soon as you start riding, you know, that could be you're undertrained. You're not trained enough. All right, end all be all. Power 100% is the best training tool ever. If you say otherwise, I just have to think that you may not be using it correctly or understanding what power can do. A power meter, a proper power meter, is going to be able to eliminate all variables. And it just tells you the truth. And sometimes we don't like that truth, right? It's hard to kind of look at that and be like, ow, I'm not as strong as I want to be. Hands down, the best way to track your progression. So from as soon as you start riding, 10 years down the road, you can really look at your progression and see how far you've come based off of watt per kilo ratio, which is how many watts you can put out per kilo body weight. A pro for power absolutely would be, again, it eliminates all variables. With the right power meter that's giving you proper numbers, there's very little that's going to be able to cloud that up. If you are on a structured training program and you want to nail it, you want to get every little minute of your time to be the best, most efficient use, a power meter is the way to do it. A con for power would be two. One, they're expensive. They are expensive. So it is an investment. I mean, you can get the cheapest is like around $400. The most expensive is like $2,000. I run the P1 pedals, which were about $1,100 or something like that. I mean, they're pricey, but I'm able to take them off, swap them different bikes. I really like those. I've had stages before. Another con is that when you dive into the world of power, it may ruin cycling for you. It's just what happens. I get so obsessed over progression and wanting to keep my numbers right and I just become obsessed with the numbers that then sometimes I'm not really enjoying the ride. I'll be in a beautiful area and I'm just staring at my power number. When to use power? Always. Like honestly, you could use power always. There's almost never an application that wouldn't say power is a fantastic option for you. In a race, on a ride, in training, there's so many ways you can use power as long as you understand what the number is that it's showing you. Structure training, intervals, a power meter is gonna make your intervals literally the maximum benefit you could possibly get from it. If you've done a century without a power meter, ouch, right? If you had a power meter and you had context to that power number, that average power number, dude, you're gonna be able to, without any sort of structured training, with a power number and the right context, you could probably shave 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour off your century, right? Just because you're gonna be able to not go in the red and keep it in an endurance zone and a tempo zone to where as long as you're fueling your body, you're gonna be able to put out the maximum amount of power for that zone. All right, so with all that being said, what does Chaz have to say? What does Tony have to say about power versus heart rate versus feel?
Power versus heart rate versus feel.
Probably 85% power.
And then when do you use heart rate?
Not very often. Kind of like a systems check. Like usually if I'm recovered well and rested well, my heart rate lines up really well with my power zones. And then when I'm exhausted and not really rested well, or if I'm too rested, my heart rate is always higher than what my power zones are. So then I can tell that I need to kind of like back off a little bit.
And then do you ever just ride on feel and ignore your Garmin?
Yeah, my recovery days.
The pro for power is that, the biggest pro is that power is always constant, right? So a major con for heart rate, so I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit. So a major con for heart rate is that, if you're fatigued, if you're stressed, if you've had caffeine, any number of different things can change your heart rate. Whereas power output is always just based on the amount of force you're applying to the pedals and the velocity with which you're turning the pedals. Power always stays the same. A con of power, I'd say, is that people start to focus on it too much. And, a lot of times forget to enjoy the ride, or just, they don't take into account other factors. And it's like power is everything, right? Pro for heart rate, I suppose, is kind of like what Chaz said, that it is a good systems check where it gives you a good idea of what your physiology looks like at any given time. Hi, Ethan. So yeah, if you're fatigued again, or whatever, stress, or you can watch your heart rate and see how it compares to your expected power output, and it can tell you whether you're feeling good or if you're feeling bad and you need to hold back or whatever. Riding by feel, I guess, is it's better if you are just going out and enjoying the ride, to just ignore the power and just go. You can kind of go ride how you feel, and then maybe look at your power later and see, am I feeling good? I was feeling good during the ride. What does my power look like?
Smart guys, they use it well. So again, listen, if you had all these metrics, power, heart rate, cadence, speed, and feel, if you combine them together, you're gonna be awesome. And I understand power is expensive. And a lot of times people might think, it's not for me. I'm not a racer. I'm too old. I don't care about power. But dude, I'm telling you, once you get it under wraps and you go through the learning curve of power, it will absolutely improve your cycling ability. 100% guaranteed. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I think this is important to really understand how all these compare. And if you can use them all, fantastic. If you only have one of these to use, it's better than nothing. Whatever metric you can use to gauge progression or understand your pacing strategy is gonna make you a better cyclist, 100% guaranteed. And as always, vegan cyclist, yeah.